Hey everyone, Michael Landis, Public Information Officer here in the City of Republic. A very exciting development. We sent these out to all mailboxes in Republic. This is the 2018 Republic Annual Report. You should have received that in your mailbox already if you live in the city limits of Republic. If you live outside the city, we've got extra copies you can pick up, the police department, City Hall, but we want you to have a copy really highlighting all the exciting things that happened in Republic in 2018 and looking forward to 2019. So, of course, we have Mayor Jeff Ussery with us here today to talk about some of these exciting things. And these are really just touching the tip of the iceberg. We've got so much stuff going on in Republic. Obviously, if you live here, you drive through here, you notice the growth. That's kind of hard to miss. We start off talking about that. What are your thoughts on what's been going on the last year itself?
Yeah, I'm so thankful to be here, get to talk to the citizens of Republic and have an opportunity to talk about some of the great things that are really going on inside the city. I think the growth is one of those most visual indicators of a city's health. Mm-hmm. And I think we've seen that here lately in just restaurants, kind of I hate to say a revitalization of Highway 60, but in a time where Highway 60 had a lot of open fields and open lots and people just didn't really have a lot of interest in coming to Republic, we start to see those now build up with things and services for our citizens.
Yeah, exactly. And we wanted to get the word out to these citizens. I know in years past we've had annual reports, but we didn't have the greatest way of reaching every single person. This is one way of doing that. What's the importance of making sure that every person in town has an idea of the great things going on and maybe some of the challenges even that we're facing?
Yeah, it's vitally important. I think in years past, I don't know that an annual report's been done in maybe 3-4 years. Wow. And our charter, which governs the way we operate, does say that we need to do this. Mm-hmm. So what's important about it is, we meet the charter. We do what we say we're going to do. It's important to not just say we're going to do something, but to deliver. Secondly, I think in the past that annual reports have been done, or a state of the city's kind of been done at a location live, mm-hmm. where if you could come to the high school, you could see the mayor give a state of the city and maybe the city administrator and some other department heads. Whereas this way, we get to reach as many citizens as possible. So we should thank you for putting this together, and it going out to every mailing address inside the city means that everybody has an opportunity to read what's going on. The last thing I would say is this isn't a pat on the back for us, because there are some things in here that we're probably not super proud of.
Sure. Yeah.
We do want to talk about our successes, but we also want to talk about the things that we need to work on. Mm-hmm. And to me, that's transparency. That's not fluffing up numbers and saying, look how great things are, because we all have problems to deal with. Every city has those problems. We think we're probably doing a little better than some other cities, mm-hmm. but we wanted to talk about the things that we need to work on too.
Yeah. And you mentioned transparency, just being open. I mean, there's great things going on. We can see those, but I mean, we've got growth to do continuously, both on the inside and out as well.
Yeah, every time we fix one thing, we notice there are 2 more things that we need to work on. So you're never going to be perfect. You're never going to fix everything, but the important thing is that we strive for that perfection and that we constantly try to make things better for the people who live here.
Exactly. All right. So we've had an exciting year as you're flipping through this annual report. Have a blast. That continues to get bigger and bigger. Some of our larger events really attracting a lot of people just for families and such. And real quickly, we'll touch on population trends right here. Obviously, you come into the city limits, you see that population sign right there, which is technically only updated every few years. But if you live here, you know more and more people are moving in. That can be a great thing, obviously, but challenges. I mean, it's a cliche thing, but growing pains. I mean, we've seen some of those as well.
Yeah, we have. The city services get strained when more and more people use them. And I think we also find that as we become more of a regional destination with places like Flat Creek, and there's Panda Express. There are a lot of places, Black Lab Coffee, Village Pottery, things that you just can't necessarily do in Springfield.
Right.
And then there are people who come down here to use our parks department, to use our parks, to use our aquatic center, to come to basketball games. So as those people come into town, we're not just dealing with the citizens that live here. We also have to provide a service to those who want to visit our town.
Yeah.
Because we owe to them to make it safe. Sure. And to make it enjoyable. So seeing the population numbers, to think that in 2040 we could be at 37,386 people, well, I know that is a projection. Mm-hmm. I also know that there are a lot of things that we would have to beef up and work on. Absolutely. To get to that point. Yeah. And we always want to provide a great level of service to the citizens. Look, I've lived here. I've been fortunate. I've lived here I went to kindergarten here, and I was able to graduate high school here. Right. So I have seen the growth of this city, and I know we've always had our challenges, and I'm not always going to be here, and you're not always going to be here. So the important thing for us to do when looking at these population numbers is our legacy items, things that we know that we're going to be able to plant this seed now and it's going to blossom, and the people who come after us are going to have it easier, rather than maybe some of the things we had to deal with when we got here.
So look, in 2018, 17,400 approximate. That's the estimate. Probably not going to decline any, right? And in 2019, I'm just going to keep growing, it sounds like.
Right. I think we've become the place to be, and that's a great thing. We watched Nixa and Ozark grow for years and basically outgrow us, grow past us. And I think we finally put some things in place, some of those things we'll talk about in here, that really are attracting people to want to live in Republic.
You mentioned. All right. So obviously with more people coming in, you need more public services, police being one of those. Been a good year for the police department. A lot of growth going on there. Obviously, Chief Brian Sells being named chief. He's been here for quite a while, obviously. But a lot of growth going on there, but a lot of growth that needs to happen. We've got so many people that need protection on the streets out there in our neighborhoods. And that's one thing we're looking to do, is continue to hire more people, as we've done in 2018.
Right. And forgive me for being candid, it's just who I am. Yeah. So I hope you all can appreciate the fact that I'm me. And I'll just be honest that when we had the police chief opening, Brian Sells was a sergeant, and a lot of people were telling us we were crazy for considering moving a sergeant to chief, because I've got some experience in the police field. I did it for 16 years, and that's not a normal progression. But here at Republic, we are looking for leadership. We're not looking for titles. You know, Chief Sells has been here for a long time. I can't remember exactly when he started at the Republic Police Department. I believe it was in the 90s.
96.
And he's been, you know, an asset. He's never left. He stayed through some good times. He stayed through some bad times, and it was just time to give him an opportunity to lead the department. And then also Lieutenant Burks, you know, becoming the sole lieutenant at the Republic Police Department. He has, I think, Lieutenant Burks has the buy-in of the officers. They understand that he's there for their best interest. He has their back, and will do everything, unless you do something wrong, obviously. You know, he'd have to deal with them then. But we just have a new culture at the police department where I think the officers can feel comfortable. The turnover rates, we talked a little bit about that, which we'll get into here in a minute. But again, that police department, you look at 14,773 incidents responded to in 2018, and that was of November. So that didn't even include December, which we all know can be busy as well.
Absolutely, yeah.
One of the big things we've got to look at the police department is, in the funding area, is the fact that our pay, retirement, and insurance, things like that, just aren't up to par. And that's probably citywide. Sure. That we need to work on those things, and that goes into that retention number. And I look at this city report and I see that nice, beautiful police department, but what we don't think about are the things that came out of our general fund to pay for the things in that building. Though, you know, that there's a police tax that should have been taken out of there initially, but just again, transparency with our citizens. In the past, some of those general fund dollars were used for things like buildings when they should have been spent on people. And that's why we are in some of the positions we're in today. But the police department does a great job. They filed 2,529 reports, which for a city of our size is great. They're averaging 57 incidents per day.
Keeps it busy.
It does. And, you know, I've gotten calls before on some of the officers, you know, at Come and Go. You know, there's two of them there at Come and Go, and they get breaks too. So I just make sure that people understand that they're not robots. The police and fire, they have to take breaks. And 57 incidents per day, that's not just printing off a piece of paper. That's responding to a domestic or a child abuse or a rape or, you know, something of that nature that's pretty high profile or pretty stressful. So understand that if they're there getting a drink, they probably needed a break.
Absolutely. And those numbers growing, but that's just simply because as our population grows, just statistically, you're going to have more incidents need responding to.
Right. The more people that come to town, the more incidents we'll have. And it's not because we're not getting a specific kind of person, which I think oftentimes is what we hear. Just as you grow, there are going to be more incidents. Those can be compounded. I think what we have done a good job of is that I don't think the number of incidents have kept up with the growth currently. So I think we've got a pretty safe city.
I think so.
We don't have a lot of the bad things that you see in other cities, even though we're a growing community. So the police department's done a good job keeping a tap on that.
I know we've had other initiatives in the past year, the police recruitment video that we put together, and I know that's helped, and just trying to find quality people, just showing them the Republic's a great place to live and to work. And I think a lot of folks have got that message and they joined the force. So,
right. And that's again, that's a thanks to you. Having the ability now to hit social media platforms, how many millions of people can we reach through those platforms, and letting them understand that we are working on the pay to get it up to where it's more comparable to what it should be with the area and the size of the department. We're working on the insurance, we're working on the retirement. When a new officer starts, or a new fireman, or anybody new at the city for that matter, the first thing they look at when they're young is the pay.
Yeah, right.
How much am I getting paid per hour? Well, about 5 years down the road, they start thinking about, well, what's my retirement?
Yeah.
So
it hits you.
And that's when it hits you, and that's when we start losing people. And that is the worst time to lose them, because we've put 5 years into them of training and culture and just grooming someone to be the next leader, and then they leave. And that causes some issues. So those are the things we've got to work on.
Yeah, and it's important to retain people because, these officers, if they're here for a long time, they know the people, they know the neighborhoods, they know the town, and that means a lot.
Not only that, the community policing model is huge, and that citizens feel comfortable getting a hold of the officer that they need to talk to. But also from looking at a fiscally responsible side, it could cost $100,000 to $150,000 to $200,000 in training over years' time, and that's not something though you can put your hands around and say, well, we're going to cut that out of the budget. It's just something that happens.
Exactly.
And I think the more we see the retention continue to get better and better, the less we're obviously going to spend in that area, and we'll have more money to do the things we need to do. But having those same officers, familiar faces, if you're in a crisis, I think the most comforting thing you can see is a familiar face.
That's right.
We all know that. Yeah. And the retention, keeping those officers so that they are a familiar face, the community policing model continues on, is just really vitally important to our community.
The flip side of public safety obviously being the fire department, pretty busy for them as well, looking at these numbers. Any thoughts on the fire department? I mean, we've had a lot of new hires. I know there's still some challenges with that. Probably not as much as the police department. They've had some better luck. I know we're training some people and getting them on board right there. But a lot of growth as well, both personnel, but the number of incidents. I mean, it's just staying busy for them as well.
Right. And so the fire department thankfully doesn't respond to as many calls for service as the police department. If that were the case, we would probably have to look at some building code issues. But what's important for the citizens to know about the fire department, if they're not familiar with them, is that when they're not on calls, they're not just sitting at the station. They're always doing some kind of work. And I think that's highlighted here by number of citizens reached through the fire prevention program and community events, 7,280.
Wow.
So when you go back and look at our current population, which is about 17,399, and they reach 7,280 citizens through these prevention programs and education programs, that's a big deal.
Yeah.
That probably is why we don't have as many fires, and we don't have people getting seriously injured or killed in fires, because of the education that's being given by these firefighters. And we have some really top-of-the-line firefighters. Guys and girls that could go to probably a number of departments in this area, but they love their city and they love their department. They love their brothers and sisters that they work with, so they do stay with us. But the number of contacts, the number of calls, answered 911 dispatches for service, 2,115. Over a year's time, that's a lot of calls.
Yeah.
That's a lot of times that they got a fire truck out and ran to a call and helped someone who was in need.
And that includes obviously fires and medical calls as well. I mean, they're all over the place.
Yeah, we are lucky that we don't have as many fires as we do, or as some places do. But we're very fortunate that we have those firefighters that can, once they get to a call, they can knock it down really quickly. I've seen some pictures and I've heard of some of the calls that they've gone on where a fire started in a kitchen. And looking at some other locations throughout the state, it could have been, 10, 15 minutes before a firefighter got there with the right tools to do the job. And our guys and gals got there and knocked the fire down so quick that really all they had to deal with was smoke damage and water damage. So what could have been a total loss ended up being contained to one small area because of our response times, their training, and their abilities.
Exactly. I know Fire Chief Dwayne Compton was telling us about one of the challenges they faced in 2018 was the response time, that being from the time they get the call to the time they arrive on scene. That was 5 minutes, 39 seconds. That was up 29 seconds from 2017, that being something they're trying to work on. He told me that, first of all, you've got just more stuff happening. Traffic is getting worse. I mean, they come out of the station, They got to be in the same traffic that we do, and we know things are getting busy out there sometimes. Obviously, personnel being an issue as well. So that being one of the things, there are a lot of great things going on, but one of the focuses are trying to improve on that however they can.
Yeah, and kind of it joins in with this as we do have some congestion on Highway 60. We are very aware of that as a city. We work with MoDOT as a partner. We know currently that Highway 60 to the east, on the east side of Republic, is at about 113% capacity, so it's well beyond what it was ever made to do. And with the growth, that's only going to get worse. Well, if those cars are sitting on the highway, that makes it that much harder for emergency vehicles to get through. So the first thing I would say is a reminder to all of our citizens that if you do see an emergency vehicle, is to pull to the right. Get out of their way and let them get to the emergency. I understand sometimes we want to keep on going. We see it in our rearview mirror, and we think, well, they're going to turn off before they get to me. But importantly, just pull off to the side and let the vehicle through. Going back to that highway issue, 113% capacity. Unfortunately, the Missouri Highways and Transportation Commission chose to reallocate a large amount of funds that would have gone to the OTO, which is the Ozarks Transportation Organization. Those funds were reallocated to rural bridges. I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but it was devastating. So the governor is currently working on a plan to work on some bridges throughout the state. This is separate from that. These are dollars that were taken out of these metropolitan areas that should have been used to fix things like 113% capacity on Highway 60, but will now go to rural bridges. We understand the bridges need help too. I just think that probably, there should have been a mechanism in place and maybe some forethought put into that. We are the stakeholders of those dollars, and we were never notified that that was going to happen. And I think when we talked about that before, a lot of people think, well, we're just complaining because we're not going to get more money. Well, the actuality is we're complaining because it does stuff like this, which is increased response time to fires. It increases police time to disturbances. When the cars are just sitting on the highway, we can't get through there. The officers can't get through there, fire can't get through there, EMS can't get through there. And we have to have a way to fix that, and taking dollars out of that location, a state commission taking dollars away from there just wasn't responsible.
Sure. I will talk about this more a little bit, but people need to remember we don't have unlimited funds. I mean, you hear people talking about, well, why don't they fix Highway 60 at 174? Why don't they make 66 lanes out of town? Well, just because we know there's a need doesn't mean there is the money to fix that need. And so people need to remember that, I think, as we're talking about these different funding mechanisms that, we know it needs to be done. We're sitting in the same traffic as they are, but we don't have the money in our back pocket exactly.
We're not the federal government. We balance our budget. We can't just borrow more money from someone else or prep more. We live within our means. I know a lot of citizens probably don't think that we do, but we do. We balance our budget every year. And we have to allocate dollars, and we have to prioritize those or triage them. Now, there are certain dollars that have a ballot initiative that says, this is a tax dollar that was taken in, and you're going to spend this much money on this item. But there are other things where we can move money legally to accommodate some of those things that have needs. But we only have a certain amount of money, and we can only write a check from our account for what we've got in the account. So we do know that there are needs, and we triage and prioritize those and try to get to as many as we can throughout each year while still continuing to cut debt.
Absolutely. All right, moving on to people. We've talked a lot about people, how it's important to invest in them. I mean, facilities, equipment is important, but it's the people that are out there doing the work. We've had some big improvements. I've only been here for a little under a year, but it sounds like maybe a few years back we had some issues convincing people this was a great place to work. I'll just leave it at that. So Lisa, our Human Resources Director, telling us some pretty amazing numbers when it comes to getting people to stay and make things better for them. And it's important for the citizens because, once again, familiar faces, people that have been here for a while, we know the community, and that's ultimately going to make a better experience for them as well. All right. Touching on this real quick, obviously, we got employees here at the City of Republic, but within the community as well. A big opportunity happening out on the west side of town with the construction of OTC. Dirt's moving out there, so that's going to be a great thing for our workforce. People beyond City Hall, whatever it's going to be, people be able to stay here in Republic, get their education, and hopefully stay. I mean, we need the best and brightest here locally as well.
The Bussy Cox and Lipscomb family have land out there. I think that was actually Lester E. Cox's farm, his land out there where the Republic Police Department is today. And they have been gracious enough to donate some of that property to the city. And now they're working with OTC to get the campus out there, which will open in the fall of 2020, I believe August or September of 2020. And that area initially is the way city leaders thought the city was going to grow to the west. Right. And we all know that didn't happen.
Yeah.
We grew towards Springfield. And that was to keep probably Springfield from growing into Republic.
Sure, right.
So with that being said, even though that didn't happen years ago when they put a grocery store out there and a Burger King and the police department, it did not grow that direction. With OTC sprouting up out there, I think we're going to see that's going to be the anchor that really starts to have businesses pop up around there. We're going to have just a crazy opportunity. I can't even think of the right word for it.
Right.
That we're going to have students that are going to be there at OTC for the workforce in Republic.
Yeah.
So as our industrial park out there grows with McLean and Watson Metalworks and everything, Kitchens and Red Monkey and Lou's, everything that I'm missing probably that's out there, we're going to have people coming right out of a college that can walk right in there and start work. So what an exciting time for those people, and that'll help our industrial park grow even bigger, I believe.
Dirt's turning, and I think the steel's probably going to go before we know it, so it's going to go by quick, I'm sure. So, all right. Public Works, this just being everything from wastewater and water to streets and such. A lot of projects going on this year, Hines and Oakwood. I know that was one of those things where the end result is a great intersection, but some frustration in the meantime. Of course, we appreciate everyone's patience during that. And of course, once the intersection opens up and they see it, well, those kind of die down. But
one of the best things I get to do is take credit for things I had nothing to do with.
Yeah.
And the good you get the bad. With the good you get the bad.
Right.
And with the bad, the fact is that at Oakwood and Hines there were federal dollars to be used for that intersection. It wasn't like we just got the money and did the intersection. People asked about the timing. There were a lot of questions surrounding that.
Sure.
The truth is that was voted on years ago by another council, with a different mayor, a different city administrator, pretty much everyone was different.
Yeah.
And we had to put some things into action and get that intersection going because those dollars were just sitting there. We don't want to take a chance of ever losing those dollars.
Right.
So we started when we did because of the urgency to get it done. We didn't want to just sit on the money, and the citizens were promised that to be done. So we wanted to fulfill that promise and get it done. It's going to be great when it's done.
Yeah.
I personally think that money probably could have been allocated elsewhere, like maybe a Highway 60. But once it had already been decided we were going to do it, it needed to be done.
Yes, right.
And as you look at the increase in population, Oakwood and Hines is going to become one of those intersections that we're thankful it's going to be expanded and much more easy to drive through.
Some of these neat numbers you'll see here, there's 16,575 square feet of asphalt laid by the city. So, you see them out there on these new construction projects, renovating stuff, but there's that many miles of roadway that we have that still has to be maintained, and that's a lot of work as well.
Yeah, and also the street signs. We so far replaced 560 of those, and some of the reason for that was they were just hard to see until you were on them. You had to actually be at the street before you could tell what the street sign was. We're adding some, with the help of Empire Electric, we're adding street lights on some of those busier streets and some of those intersections where people need to have a little more visibility than just their headlights. The street signs, if you drive around the schools, are themed toward the school. So they're orange and black. They have the tiger on there.
They look nice, yeah.
And that's really, as someone who grew up here, that's really amazing to see because just for the simple fact that when a visiting school comes to play you in a sport, they get the hint real quick where they're at. And that's what we want.
Tigers,
so absolutely, we were happy to partner with the school on that.
Very good. Moving on to water. I know it's been a year of a lot of change, good, and as we've been mentioning, challenges. We have the new utility billing system come into play, and ultimately, as that's gotten worked out, people love it. I mean, we're offering technology for people to be able to pay their bills online easily, but some hiccups with that. And once again, that's an issue we appreciate everyone's patience on as we and that kind of overlapped last year and this year, but still in a lot of people's minds as well.
Yeah, it is a great new system. We were really far behind in technology when it came to the water, with all of the billing and the software that we use for that. And make no excuses, that was totally our doing. Right. We tried. That's a huge undertaking to change an entire citizen base over to a different program. And thinking back on it, we've talked about things we could have done better. I know it doesn't change the fact of what happened. Maybe we could have phased it. There are a lot of things that we could have looked at trying to do. We really wanted to provide it to the citizens as quickly as possible. Right. So there are no excuses to be made there. What we did do is offer a discount on bills for 2 months. So I think it was a 25% discount over a 2-month time frame to try to make up for some of that and to help some folks who were having some issues with their water bills. But we're excited about the future. Jason Davis is our water superintendent, and he's also a local Republic boy. Yeah. He's lived here for a very long time, and I think just there are great things in line for the water. People when they can pay their bills online, to not be able to do that, to me it just blew my mind that we couldn't do that here. So, and I think a lot of our citizens were the same way, but there are a lot of things you can do on there now that you couldn't do before, and it'll be great.
Especially folks wanting to get out of Springfield. They're used to paying their utility bills online. They come here and they're like, well, what's this all about? But now we're there. So
And you said wanting to get out of Springfield, not me. So,
right, okay.
but I'll roll with it. So
sure.
We do love the people who want to get out of maybe the hustle and bustle and get to a little bit of a smaller town. I mean, we have our own hustle and bustle, but it's if you move from a location where you had those comforts and you could get online and do all these things, and then you move to Republic, those would be things that I would say, man, I really like everything else about town, but I just don't like that I can't do these little things I used to be able to do, like pay online, or I don't, just any of the technological things that you can do now that you couldn't.
Yeah. Touching real quickly on the wastewater issue, I know there's been questions about that, a lot of growth and challenges with that. And you were kind of wanting to explain to some people why things are the way they are. I mean, 2018, 2019, and before that, and even going forward, there's going to be challenges we got to work through with that as well.
Absolutely. The unfortunate thing, and I know citizens have heard this before, maybe some of them haven't, is why I wanted to talk a little bit about it. One of the questions is always, why is my sewer bill higher?
Yeah.
Maybe they moved from a location where the sewer bill was lower, and now it's higher in Republic. And it's the location of our treatment plant, just to be honest. Years and years ago, they looked at putting the treatment plant, the one that we have now, should have been on the east side of town, down toward Farm Road 99, not in Wilson's Creek, obviously, but in that general location. There were a group of people who got together and fought that treatment plant going there, and it came to a vote of the citizens. It was a ballot initiative, and the citizens, there were, I think, 3 different votes until finally they decided they were going to put it at the dead end of West Avenue on the north side of Republic, which is uphill from pretty much everything. Our entire, and all of our growth will continue downhill from the treatment plant. So I don't think that was probably the best idea. Can't change that now. Well, I know it wasn't a good idea.
Right.
We would prefer that water and everything else associated with it flows downhill, but it has to be pumped now. And probably 2/3 of the waste that the city of Republic expends goes through 3 pumps.
Wow.
Minimum, to get back up to the treatment plant where it's supposed to be. So that also causes problems when we have a lift station that goes out. As everyone will remember, in 2017, I got the best welcome I could ever have as a mayor when our treatment plant, our biggest one on Farm Road 186 and 99, I believe, started bypassing.
Right.
And it was bypassing into Terrell Creek. So we had to notify the EPA. I was out there all night with David, Mr. Cameron, the city administrator, and several of our folks in Craig Lusby, several of the folks that were with the wastewater treat division, and we had to get help from Springfield, Nixa, and Ozark with pumper trucks. So when you build all of these lift stations and all of your waste has to go uphill, those are just the kind of things you deal with, and you deal with higher bills.
Yeah, you do. And of course, that's you mentioning energy cost to pump that, maintenance costs. There's a lot that goes into that ultimately someone's got to pay for it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. And unfortunately, we don't make money off of that. We just charge exactly what it costs to operate. So the citizens end up paying for those bad decisions.
All right, looking at our community development section here, we touched on this in the beginning, but if you live here, drive through here, you know Republic is growing. And so we're just seeing more businesses opening. You look from above, pick the drone up, and you look down, neighborhoods going up. Some pretty big numbers right there, and those are expected to get even bigger as we go forward, I know.
Right. We have to have an industrial area. We have to have that tax base we're not just relying on sales tax, because that's, at the end of the day, that's set up for failure.
Right.
We are still, I guess, what you would consider a bedroom community, but we are on the grow so much that I think that moniker is going away pretty quickly. Yeah. 260,000 industrial square foot of industrial floor space. I mean, that is just 260,000 square feet.
It's amazing, yeah.
You look at Luz and ROI and things like that went in. The square feet of commercial floor area permitted was 29,000, almost 30,000 square feet. And we did 951 building inspections that in 1 year. And that's, compared to years before, that's probably quite high.
Right.
I know that there were 338 permits issued. And then one of the things I wanted to talk about was dwelling units permitted was 217. So our industry was growing at a quicker rate than our residential for the first time in a while.
Interesting. Yeah.
That probably hasn't happened in some time.
Right.
I think we're going to see that probably reverse, as some of the realtors have told us we had over $80 million in home sales, which is a record for the City of Republic.
Yes.
More homes were sold than ever in the City of Republic. And then we also, with that, have seen that the people who live here and have bought houses here are seeing their property values continue to increase. Now, the flip side to that is you can sell your house for a lot more, but you're going to have to pay a lot more to buy one if you want to live in Republic.
Right.
But it's never a bad thing when you bought a house for $140,000 and it's worth $190,000 in 2 years. So those are just really good things for our community development department and the growth and how it impacts our citizens.
With the commercial development, obviously we've seen a lot of restaurants come in, a lot of stores, big name retailers that people are enjoying, but you still have people asking, well, hey, why didn't the city go out and attract this particular restaurant or this store? People don't understand it's not our full-time job to go knocking on doors. It's simply to roll out the welcome mat, and it looks like that's working, that philosophy, to get people to come in and move into Republic.
Yeah, when you talk about retailers, and I do hear a lot of, I would say, when I say Brahms, I'll probably you could hear the amen right there. But it's not on us to go out and try to attract specific businesses. What we need to do is we need to plow the ground, we need to make it fertile, and then let it grow. If we were to go out and specifically say we want business ABC, and we want you here no matter what, we're going to do whatever, we want you to come here, and we were to aggressively pursue them, then first off, you'd have to have someone, if it was a franchise, that had the money to invest, because they don't just pop up.
Yeah, right.
Second off, the city would then be beholden in some way. Well, if you want us there, what are you going to do for us?
Exactly.
And I'm not a big fan of that. I think that we have a great location. We have a lot of open lots right now that people could build businesses on. If somebody wants a Brahms and they have the money to open a franchise, they could contact Brahms and certainly open one up. The city can't do that, though.
Sure.
I think that's been a misconception in the past, is that I hear, well, why did you put that there? Well, I didn't put it there. We live in a capitalist market where it's people get to pick what they want and how they want to do it and where they want to do it.
Right.
Our job is just to make it easier to work with the city, and we have done that. Our one-stop shop across the street, business licensing, permitting, everything, inspection that you could need is in one building, and you talk to one person now who can direct you in the right place. Before, it was kind of like, I used to think it was so hard to pay my taxes because I would go up to the Greene County Courthouse and I'd walk over here and I'd walk over here, and I never found it so hard to give someone my money.
Right.
And we didn't want that to be the case here, and it was. You were walking across the street to this location and then back over here, and we know these businesses were thinking, man, I just want to open a business. The city's going to benefit from it. Why are you making this so hard? So we've cleaned all that up, and I think you see the results out when you drive through town. Yeah, we both enjoy our houses.
Yes.
We would probably not have those long if we were to start talking about things that we'd sign non-disclosures on.
Exactly.
But yeah, there are a lot of businesses, national names, you know, that continue to look at Republic on a daily basis. Well, and again, we did not have a public information office or officer for that point, and having you on with us has just been a blessing. So from the citizens to you, thank you very much. We love the newsletter, we love the annual report, we love all of the Facebook posts, just being able to stay connected with our citizens. And there's no mystery anymore. You know, there's not a wizard behind the curtain.
Yeah.
It's my biggest thing is I want to reduce debt, and I want to take care of the people who work here. I want to make it better for our citizens, and I want transparency. And transparency is huge, because I can remember, you know, as a young adult living in the city, there were times that things would happen, and I would never be able to understand why it got there, what happened, or where the money was, or and looking back on that, I think it's so important for those who want to get involved in the future to show them this is where all of our money is. This is how the city's doing everything that we're doing. And having someone that can put that out through mass media, and I think we've had KY3 and other news outlets here more than we ever have with some of our initiatives and even some of the problems.
Right,
you know,
that happens, comes with it.
We had some of the problems aired on there too, but we're not hiding from anybody, and we're very fortunate to have you to get the message out.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here. I know, being in media before, it was a well-known thing that good things were going on in Republic, and so I'm glad to be a little part of that now. I can be. So, city attorney's office doing a lot of work revising the city contracting. That was a big change there that needed to be happening. Also working on the city charter as well. So lots of things they've been doing as well to kind of improve that between the legal aspect, even municipal court as well.
Yeah, I think when people think of our city attorney, they think just of the municipal court. And Mr. Eisen does a lot of things that the citizens don't see, and that every day that we continue to grow, and those challenges become more and more on the legal side, because we have platting, and we just have zoning issues, and we have a number of things that Mr. Eisen has to look into on top of managing a growing municipal court and tickets and arrests and things that happen on the city police side of things. But one of the big things was the charter review, and that's going out to the citizens in April. They can vote on a number of those things, and people might look at that and say, man, there are so many things, so many different initiatives on there, so many questions. Well, we didn't want to just wrap it all in one and say, do you want us to revise the charter?
Right.
Because that's not transparent.
Sure.
What is transparent is saying, these are the things we want to change in the charter, and here's each one of them and what it will change. Simple things like the difference between an ordinance and a resolution. As the mayor, I can veto an ordinance or a resolution. If I veto an ordinance, the council can override it with a 2/3 vote. If I veto a resolution, it just dies. There's no override, there's no checks and balances. Things like that need to be changed in the charter for the future.
All right. Moving on to money. We all like money, right? But there's challenges with that, because we need money to pay for things. There's not always money there, but things have really improved. I know we've been pretty excited about our debt reduction over the past year, and once again, a lot of the stuff happening before we were here numerically, but we can see these final numbers and some stuff to be proud of, it looks like, when it comes to the hard work of the finance department and everybody in the city working together to get these numbers to where they need to be.
Right. One of the things I want to point out in the report here is that if you see the expenditures, the second line down, it says expenditures for fiscal year 2019. There was a $1.4 million deficit covered by transfers from the city's capital reserve accounts. That was a planned action. We knew that we weren't going to be able to give our firemen or our police officers a raise last year. And that had to be done because our turnover rate, we could see that turnover rate clicking down, ticking down, like I said earlier. We were going to stop, plateau, and probably start going back up if we weren't able to keep up with even some of the cities like Billings and Clever. Republic should not have a pay issue with cities smaller than us. So we knew that we still ended with a balanced budget. That's what people need to understand. Not only did we end with a balanced budget, but that $1.4 million was not a deficit, was not a debt. We didn't go into more debt with that. What I can tell you is that I just went back to when I was elected because I know what the finances were like when I got elected, and that's one of the things that made me run for office in the first place. In 2017, we had $17.3 million in debt as a city, and a lot of that debt was attached, well, most of it was attached to the general fund, which is the very mechanism we use to take care of our employees. So we were kind of doing things backwards. We should not have been using that money for debt obligations like older fire trucks and to refinance intersections that had been done like Miller and Lynn. Things that I don't think we should have still been paying for were still sitting on our books as debt. Because we wanted cash flow, the city wanted cash flow rather than paying debt off. And we needed to get that debt paid off. Well, they got to the point where they didn't have either. They weren't paying their debt and they didn't have cash flow, which got us to where we are today, to trying to fix these issues. So in 2017, $17.3 million in debt, the day I was elected. The end of 2018, we have reduced that debt to $11.9 million, which means there has been a $5.4 million reduction in debt since April of 2017. I don't know that every year will be that big because we were able to move money to the locations that it needed to be rather than where it was. But just the fact that in, 2 years' time, 2.5 years' time, we've reduced the debt $5.4 million.
That's drastic.
I think we're doing what we said we'd do. And that is a service to the citizens. And it's not just me. I'm such a small piece of the puzzle. It's our finance director, Debbie Parks. It's our city administrator, David Cameron. It's our assistant city administrators, Jared Keeling and Lisa Addington. It's our entire city council that looks at these issues and does the right thing every time we walk into that meeting room. Not everybody agrees with what we do all the time. I think a wise man told me one time that you can only hope to please half the people half the time. But if I can lay my head down on my pillow at night and know that we're hopefully making things better for the people that are going to come after us, then that's really what matters.
And everything we can do to continue reducing that debt. I mean, I know our budget for 2019 is $19,000, a little over $20,000. So $1 million, $20 million. And so still working to get that. I mean, obviously, the goal would be to have no debt. We realize that may not ever be a possibility, just with the operations, but getting that number down as much as we can go.
Right. And some comments I hear from citizens is they don't understand why we have this influx in sales tax, why we need more. Why would we need more for anything? And the truth is right there, and that's that debt reduction. So what we're trying to do is be fiscally responsible and do the right thing. And that is, with any increase in sales tax, we don't just go out and spend the money. You know, a lot of people get their income tax and they're rich for a month.
Right.
And we're trying not to do that. We're trying to, if we get an increase in sales tax, we turn around and put that back toward our debt, because if we could have a $5.4 million reduction since April of 2017, what can we do by April 2020?
Right, exactly.
You know, and we just want to see that debt continually come down, so we will be in a better cash position to do the things that we need to do to increase the services of the city.
All right. Moving on to parks, this is the fun stuff, I guess. Not that we don't have fun in other apartments as well, but this is the one thing that I think most people in the community have the most interaction with. You know, you go to the park, you go to the events, and it's been a very busy year for parks. 57,000 people coming through the Aquatic Center. I know I bring my boys out there, and it's always very busy. I love it as well, and I know a lot of people, 57,000 people probably love it right there. But big year for parks, and exciting going forward as well with them.
I think we have one of the best park systems in the area. And another thing is we're not competing with private industries. We have a park system that, so when you go to the community center and you use the workout area, the gym, you're using that's occupied by Cox Fitness Center or by Cox. They are using that, not us. It's not the City of Republic that's benefiting from that. We put that out for bid, and we see who the best is for our citizens. But just to think that 57,000 people came through that aquatic center, and most summer days, if you drove by there, you'd believe it, because it doesn't look like you could have got a whole lot more people in there. Sure. And 10,000 people. Our Have a Blast is really becoming the go-to destination for a lot of people on a fireworks show. Yeah. And we love the fact that you can come out and you can see all those fireworks. And again, we're not charging people to come to that. What we're doing is we're putting the fireworks show on, and then we're opening that up for private businesses. Yes. As you've seen, you were out there this year. You've probably been out there before. But we just have row after row after row of people selling food and drinks and any kind of novelty items. And they come out and get to make a profit. The private industry does off of something that we're offering, and it's a service we provide to our citizens. And to see that park, J.R. Martin Park, just filled up with people, it's amazing, because you don't really realize how big that is until you stand on that stage to welcome everybody and see just looks like Woodstock of Republic.
It does, right?
It's a great thing. And then 6,000 youth participants and numerous athletic community programs. Again, those are things that there's a need in the community. We have the baseball fields, the softball, volleyball, basketball, and it gives our youth an opportunity to get involved either in their off season or before they get started into organized athletics at the school, and hopefully helps us bring more state titles home with the Republic School District. Hopefully we can play a small part in that.
All right. Well, so we just kind of wrapped up 365 days in 56 minutes. Wow. So we were not sure if we're going to have enough time to even go on for 30 minutes, but we had a lot of great stuff to talk about. So so looking forward to 2019, Mayor. What are some of your thoughts about what we can expect, or even having hopes for in this? We're already in 2019, but for the rest of the year.
I think we continue to pay off our debt. We look toward taking care of our employees, living this mission, vision, and values every day, that we're going to be aggressively progressive through processes, relationships, and trust. We're going to grow together by always doing the right thing at the right time for the right reason, and that our values will define us, define who we are and how we'll accomplish the mission and vision. And that's through our REPUBLIC, the Republic, and that's regional, ethical, professional, urgent, bold, leaders, insightful, and caring. And I think if we continue to do that, everything else just falls into place. So when you have the right mindset and you do right by people, I think that good things happen, and we're there. So we're going to continue to take care of the people that work for us. We're going to continue to try to provide a great service to our citizens, be the destination that everyone in the region want to move to Republic, and just keep giving them more options of places to eat and do things, nightlife, hopefully, eventually, something that families can get out and do.
Best day still ahead, right?
We're only starting.
All right.
We're just getting traction.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Mayor. That's the state of the city. And once again, the 2018 annual report. Should have received that in the mailbox already if you're here in Republic. But if not, we have plenty of extra copies here at City Hall on 213 North Main Avenue. Also, the police department has those. So you may live outside Republic, still want to know all the stuff going on. So those copies are there for you. Also be available online. So be sure to check out our website, republicmo.gov. So you can check that out. And if you have any questions, comments, info@republicmo.gov. We'd love to hear from you. Questions, comments, whatever you have. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for watching.